All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and I apologize for the delay. We are set to get started now. Tonight, we have a really special discussion or chat with Bassem who is, you'll hear more about him in just a minute. I just wanted to thank you all for being here. This is being sponsored by Hillel of Greater Metro West, and we were supposed to have this event at Seton Hall University. Unfortunately, we had to move it online to this Zoom platform, but it does give us the opportunity to bring lots more people onto this call to hear from Bassem. So I'm going to turn it over to Emmett, who is our Vice President at Seton Hall Hillel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Emmett Michaelis, and thank you all for being present tonight as you hear from our esteemed guest, Bassem. Bassem is a Jerusalem-based political analyst, human rights pioneer, and expert commentator on Arab and Palestinian affairs. He was born in the Jordanian-occupied Old City of East Jerusalem and grew up in the United Nations Refugee Works Agency refugee camp of Shuafat. He rose to prominence during the First Intifada and was a senior field researcher for B'Tselem, the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the Occupied Territories. In 1996, he founded the Jerusalem-based Palestinian Human Rights Monitoring Group. In 2016, he assumed the role of chairman of the Center for Near East Policy Research. Bassem publicly condemned the murder of Palestinian dissidents, often for reasons unrelated to Intifada. In 1995, following his report about the Palestinian Preventive Security Service, he came under attack by some Palestinian leaders for revealing human rights violations committed by the Palestinian Authority. He was arrested by Arafat's presidential guard and was released after 25 hours, following widespread international condemnation. Bassem has spent the last 26 years researching UNWRA policies and has written extensively on the subject of UNRWA reform and is an outspoken critic of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. Please join me in welcoming Bassem.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Rebecca, for the hard work to reach each other via the Zoom. This is the second time that we are trying. And unfortunately, things right now looks like upside down in the relationship between the Israelis and the Palestinians. I think that the October 7th almost pushed the Israeli-Palestinian conflict backward at least for 50 years. We need right now 50 years to rehabilitate and to reconstruct the relationship between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And that means that unfortunately, the solutions for the conflict are going to be very late after the October 7th. I want to say that on the October 7th, the Hamas almost proves to the international community that they are a genocidal movement, that they are a brutal, barbaric terrorist organization. We used to say all the time, since the Hamas occupied the Gaza Strip in 2007, that Hamas is going to bring a lot of tragedies to the Palestinian people. That the Hamas never ever represent the Palestinians, but they are representing their own agents and their own traitors. The Hamas proves after the October 7th that they are a real Iranian agent and a Qatari traitors. Friends, I want to tell you about my friend called Yusuf, who used to live in the north of the Gaza Strip in a city called Beit Lahia. Yusuf called me one day and he told me, Bassem, do you know what's happened last night? I said, really not. What's happened, Yusuf? He said, 4 people came to my house and they told me that they are going to build a tunnel under my house. Now, Yusuf is a father of 6 children, working in a bakery in the Gaza city, 12 hours a day work in $2.5 American. So they told him that they are going to build a tunnel under his house. And they told him that they are going to pay him $50 a month. This is, by the way, the $50 money coming from Qatar, not from the Hamas. And they said, yes, Yusuf, what was your answer to them? He said, my answer to them, I told them, please try to build 4 tunnels in turn to give me $200 a month. So they are not only using their people as a human shield, they are also using the poverty of their own people. Hamas in the past 17 years brought to Gaza only misery, poverty, and destruction. Hamas in the past 17 years imposed 7 or 8 different wars on Israel, that the only victims of those wars were the Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip, including, of course, the Israelis in the south of Israel. So what we really achieved from the Hamas in the past 17 years. And this is what I used to say all the time. While the Hamas is holding 134 Israeli hostages, what that really benefiting the Palestinians? I think that the Palestinians in Gaza right now start shouting publicly and loudly that the Hamas should have to release the hostages because those civilians want to go back to their homes. The people in Gaza living under the impression that this war in Gaza almost coordinated with some Arab countries. And some Arab countries reached the conclusion that if the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is going to be solved, it will never ever be solved while the Hamas is still ruling the Gaza Strip. So the first thing is to erase the Hamas name from the map. The first thing is to destroy the Hamas movement in the Gaza Strip. After destroying this terrorist organization, probably the peace process will be much more easier between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Friends, people are suffering and people are going to suffer more. And this is what the Hamas said in the past, that they are going to continue their war with Israel until the last Gazan will remain in Gaza. So I'm wondering sometimes whom the Hamas really representing here. Friends, the Hamas in the past 17 years succeed to build over than 700 kilometers square of tunnels. But in the meantime, the Hamas never ever tried to build one shelter for his own people. One shelter to protect themselves from the wars that the Hamas imposing on Israel. And when you are asking the leaders of the Hamas why they didn't build a shelter, what was the answer? That the responsibility of the Gazan people is only on the United Nations and on the Israeli occupation. Hamas want Israel to build shelters for the Gazan people. Now, the UN, in my opinion, morally is bankrupt, and they lost their legitimacy and their presence. We saw recently how the United Nations, the UNRWA employees participated in the attack of the October 7th. UNRWA already admitted that 12 of its employees participated in the attack of the October 7th. I can guarantee each of you that we are talking over 100 employees who participated in the attack of the October 7th. And which kind of employees we are talking? These are not employees who are working in stationery to clean the streets in the refugee camps. Those employees are teachers who used to teach mathematics and English language to our students and to our pupils in the schools. Imagine a teacher went to somewhere to rape, to kill, and to take hostages. This is a real tragedy for the all Palestinian people, not only for the Gazan people. Friends, right now, looks like that Israel is not going to end this war very soon. And looks like that Israel is looking for a definite victory here, that the Hamas never ever will remain in the Gaza Strip. I think that the international community right now looking to this war as a legitimate war. No one is calling to stop the war except the Hamas. Even the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, never ever asked to stop the war. And Israel considering this war as its second war for independence. This is why Israel is going very fast to achieve the goals and the aims from that war. I hope that Israel will not become blind from its anger. I think we should have to take care of the civilians. Those civilians almost victimized by the Hamas in several ways. So sometimes I used to say to the international community, stop calling us victims, because we are victimizing ourselves, and we have been victimized by our own leaders, if it is in the Gaza Strip or it is in the West Bank. Now, if we will move to the West Bank a little bit, the situation in the West Bank economically are below zero. As you might know, we used to have over 200,000 Palestinian workers who used to work every day in Israel. Those 200,000 workers used to bring every month hundreds of millions of shekels to the West Bank. Since the October 7th, no one Palestinian worker from the West Bank is allowed to enter to Israel. And we can see right now the right wing in the current Israeli government calling to import workers from Philippines, from Thailand, from India, and the right wing totally against to allow to any Palestinian worker to enter to Israel. So that's going to put the West Bank in a very difficult economic situation. The Palestinian Authority couldn't do that much. I think that the Palestinians in the West Bank are so frustrated and so angry from their own leaders. I believe if any elections will take place in the West Bank tomorrow, Abbasi probably will be elected only by his two sons and his wife. I think that the people start realizing the problem of the Palestinian Authority and the corruption of the Palestinian Authority. So the international community right now is trying to find a kind of solutions to the day after in the Gaza Strip. Israel will continue holding the internal security of the Gaza Strip. Some European countries calling to find out some international organizations to manage the daily life of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. President Biden suggested to give the Gaza Strip back to the Palestinian Authority. In my opinion, I think that it is the time to allow the Palestinians to rule themselves by themselves. As you might know, the Gaza Strip is divided to 5 different districts. In each district, you have a big tribe. Let us give the tribes to manage the daily life of the Gazan people. Let each tribe take responsibility on its own city and to manage it. I think it is much better than to have any government or any president or any organization over there. I think that the Palestinians are still very respectful to the tribes rather than anything else. Let us try this model of governance at least for 5 years, and then probably a charismatic leader will found among the Palestinians who can really make peace with the Israelis. Now, my last message, I want to talk a little bit about the so-called pro-Palestinians, which I am calling them gangsters and thugs. I think that those people never ever been a pro-Palestinians. They are just a pro-Hamas and pro-terror. Those people on the October 7th start celebrating the massacre against the Jews on the October 7th, considering it as a Palestinian victory. If the Jewish massacres will be considered as a Palestinian victory in the 21st century, this is the end of humanity. I think that those people trying to spread out terror around the campuses in the United States. I saw them. I was 3 days ago at Tennessee University in Knoxville, and unbelievable what these people did in the lecture room over there. It is unbelievable. They start terrorizing each person inside the room. They start threatening. They start throwing things towards the people. This is something unbelievable. And I think that those, the so-called pro-Palestinians, are people who are really causing damage to the Palestinian reputation. I am accusing here or putting the responsibility here on the American administration and the universities administrations. I think that the legislators should have to start working on laws to limit the activities of those terrorists. Otherwise, all of the United States very soon is going to suffer from them. Also, the universities administrations should have also to limit the activities of those people on their campuses. They are threatening, they are sending messages to their colleagues that they are going to shoot and they are going to kill. These are not campuses. Such campuses you will never ever see in any Arab countries. That will never happen in any Arab country. So I think that the American administration and the universities administrations should have to be very careful about the future of those people and which damage those people are planning to cause in the near future against the American society. Let me probably stop right now and give you some time for Q&A. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I didn't mention this before, but if you want to ask a question, please send it to me in the chat feature, and then I will read the question out for you. Our first question is from Dan Kushner, and it's a two-part question, Bassem. It's one, do you think that the majority of Gazan civilians are against Hamas at this point? And also, do you believe that the Gazan civilians are capable of preventing Hamas from coming back to power if Israel retreats from Gaza?
See, I think that if we will take, the surveys at the beginning of this war, it probably looks like that over than 80% in Gaza and in the West Bank are supporting the Hamas. But if we will look to the surveys in the past, probably 1.5 months, this number is decreased, even reach less than the half of it, which means that people start really realizing that what is going on in the Gaza Strip, Hamas is really the only one who is responsible on that. I think that the people start realizing that Gaza used to be Singapore and the Hamas turned it into ISIS. I believe that those tribes, if Israel will be able to provide a good economy for them, they will be able to provide a good security. On the other side, Israel is not going to leave Gaza. Israel will continue controlling the internal security of Gaza. And right now, you can see how Israel is fighting with Egypt towards the Rafah passage, because Rafah passage used to be the main place where the Hamas used to smuggle their military equipment through. So now Israel wants to take the Rafah passage back under its responsibility. And I believe that if Israel will continue watching and controlling the internal security of Gaza with those tribes, I don't believe that any other organization like the Hamas will raise in the future or will develop in the future.
Excellent, thank you. The next question is from Josh S. And he said, based on the tribal confederation model described for the day after, would a future Palestinian state incorporate the West Bank and Gaza as a singular state, or would they remain separate as they have in practice since the 2008 civil war?
See, I believe I am not an optimistic person towards any kind of unity between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. I think that neither the Hamas nor Abbas are interested in such unity. And that's leading me, sometimes when the American administration talking about the two-state solution for two people, I think that the Palestinian leaders are much more interested in a three-state solution for two people, because the Hamas used to defend its own Islamic emirate in the Gaza Strip. Abbas is defending his own empire in the West Bank and the state of Israel. This is how we are living since 2005, since the Israelis withdrew from the Gaza Strip. So to think about a kind of unity, those days, I think that this is something which is not on the agenda of the Palestinian leadership. Unfortunately, looks like that neither the Gazan nor the West Bankers want to be together. You know, we used to be separated for 19 years, from 1948 till 1967. We used to be separated from each other. The only one who united the West Bank with the Gaza Strip was Israel after the war of the 1967. And looks like that the Palestinians are really not so interested in such kind of unity between the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. So I am, as I said, I am not optimistic. Probably the Gaza Strip one day will go back to Egypt. The West Bank one day will go back to Jordan. And looks like that this is probably the only available solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
So, just as a follow-up, my own personal question, would you say that then a two-state solution isn't necessarily only being shot down by the Israeli government, let's say, it's also not something that the Palestinians are interested in simply because there's no unity there. There's no way for that to come together to be a two-state solution. We're looking at a three-state solution if that's the case. Is that?
Yeah. Listen, let me say the following. I am a person who believes that the Palestinians are not really qualified for a state these days. And I want to suggest to the American administration, instead to talk about the two-state solution, let us talk how we can start building the bridges between the Israelis and the Palestinians, in terms to bring them together, in terms to give them to sit together and to negotiate. I don't think that a state can be given. A state must have to be built. And I think that the Ariel Sharon plan in 2005, when he decided to withdraw from Gaza, and they asked him, why you withdrew from Gaza? He said that the international community is calling for a state to the Palestinians. Let us give them Gaza to see how they are going to build it. Unfortunately, we failed. And we destroyed in Gaza what remains from the Israelis. So I think that it is too early right now to start talking about the two-state solution. And I think that there is much more things that should be done before talking about the two-state solution.
Very fair. Another question that just came in. Do you think that the full eradication of Hamas that Israel's military offensive is aiming for is a realistic goal? And what does an end to this current war look like, in your opinion?
See, the Hamas are people who are trying to implement a foreign agenda here, not a Palestinian agenda. It became very clear during this war how the Hamas can be considered as an Iranian agents and a Qatari traitors. I think that at this point, not only Israel who should have to fight the Hamas, in my opinion, also the Palestinians should have to fight against the Hamas and to stand side by side beside Israel. I think that Israel is trying to save the Palestinian in Gaza from the Hamas. I think what Israel is doing right now is to free Gaza from the Hamas. Hamas is a barbaric. Hamas is a genocidal movement. And I think that we need a kind of protection from such terrorist organization. And looks like to me, this is the moment right now that we should have to support what is Israel is doing in terms to erase the name of such terrorist organization from the map.
Okay. The next question's from Tamima Hirschman. Has Israel had any previous political interaction with the leaders of the tribes? And do the leaders support living in peace with Israel?
See, I think that the Israeli Prime Minister, Mr. Netanyahu, recently started talking about this issue. And I think that there is some people from the Israeli government are in touch right now with the Egyptian government towards the issue of the tribes. Because as you know, those tribes need a kind of protection. They need someone to protect them. It's not an easy mission if they are going to rule the daily life of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. As you might know, Gaza has been occupied by Egypt for 19 years. Egypt knows those tribes very well. I want also to remind you that 60% of the population in Gaza are Bedouin. They are Bedouin. These people during the 1948 flee from the south of Israel, from Beersheba, from Rahat, from those places. So originally, these people are Bedouin. And I think that Egypt probably can be a good moderator here between those tribes and Israel, how to accept such kind of job and how Israel is going to improve, let's say, the economic prosperity of the Gazan. I believe that if Egypt will be interfere in this issue, things probably will go very smoothly, and very soon we will see that those tribes are start managing the daily life of the Palestinians very soon.
Right. And our next question is two different questions from Ira Jaskell. Why is Biden pushing an independent two-state solution at this time? And the second question is, do you believe the death figures that Hamas releases?
The first question, I think that you have to ask Biden. Why Biden is pushing towards the two-state solution? I think that this is something which is much more related to his election campaign rather than to any other realities here in the region. Now towards the numbers of the, you meant the numbers of the dead people?
Yes, I think that's what he meant.
Yeah, I think I am doubt about all the numbers which has been published in the media during the war. What I know, on the first week of the war, that the Hamas policemen went to the hospitals and they met with doctors. And they told the doctors, if you will receive 10 dead bodies and the media asking you how much, make them 100. Make them 100. We remember on the 17th October, the rocket which has been shot by the Islamic Jihad on one of the hospitals over there, and they accused Israel on it. Immediately after the rocket falling on the hospital, Hamas declared that 500 people has been killed. 2 days after, the number of the killed people decreased to 170. To 170. So I think that there is a lot of exaggerations here on the numbers, and those numbers will be very difficult right now to know what are the real numbers. These are something that it probably need a lot of researches after the war will be ended, and then probably through the researches we will be able to find the correct number of the killed people and the injured people.
Okay. The next question is from Eliyahu Alfasi, who says, do you think that this war will lead up to a second war on terror similar to what happened after 9/11? And a side question, were you the one in the PragerU video explaining Hamas?
See, I don't think that will lead to another war. I think that this war probably is going to be the last war in the Gaza Strip. First of all, I really hope. I think if Israel will be able to destroy such terrorist organizations like the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, I don't think that there is any need for any coming war between the two sides, and especially when Israel will continue holding the internal security of the Gaza Strip. I can definitely say that no more wars will be taken against the Gaza Strip. Towards the second one, what you said?
There's a PragerU video that explains Hamas, and he asked if you were the one explaining what Hamas was in that
Yeah,
video.
that was, I think that it was a very good video. I recorded, probably 2.5 years ago in Los Angeles. And I think that when this war started, the PragerU decided to repost the video, and I must have to tell you that this video became so famous among the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank, and people succeed to translate it, from English to Arabic. Some people are very upset on me, but in the meantime, so many people congratulate me on that video.
This question is from a professor at NJIT, Bruce Buckiet. Why do you think the European Union, except Hungary, is calling for a ceasefire, essentially calling for Hamas to survive?
See, I don't think that the ceasefire is going to put an end here for anything. We noticed and we watched a lot of ceasefires which has been taken between Israel and Hamas. I don't think that ceasefire can do anything here. I don't think that increasing the humanitarian aid can do anything here. There is an ultimatum here for Israel that this war should have to eliminate the Hamas. This war should have to put an end for the Hamas regime in the Gaza Strip. So all of those who are talking about the ceasefire, I don't think that there is any kind of solution through the ceasefire. We already practiced the ceasefire many times, and we didn't see any positive results from that ceasefire. This is a very tough and very heavy, let me say, war, and looks like that Israel will never ever stop it until the Hamas will be erased from the political map of the Middle East.
All right. Our next question is from Rachel Asarnow. How do you think civilians in Rafah can best be protected as the war moves there? Also, do you think that reports that there is a famine or about to be a famine in Gaza is about to happen are accurate, and how can that best be addressed during the war?
See, Rafah is in big trouble right now. I think that it became also a big trouble to the Israelis, because we can see also that most of the Hamas leaders and probably most of the hostages right now are in Rafah. And I think that the Americans are pushing, probably to change the war tactics towards Rafah. I think that there is a lot of pressure also from the Americans on the Egyptian side, probably to accept at least 500,000 Palestinians to allow them to enter to Sinai in Egypt. I don't know how it is going to be, but if the war will continue as it is right now, I think that so many killed people are going to be in Rafah. Even I can say much more than the total number of the killed people since the beginning of the war until today. Unfortunately, I think that the Hamas should have to start also thinking about that. And the question is not only Israel, it's also the Hamas. What we can see from the international community, that everybody is accusing Israel, but no one try to accuse Hamas on what is really going on. I think that more and more pressure we need here on the Hamas, at least to release the 134 hostages that they are holding, which has never ever benefited the Palestinians. This is the first demand. Let us release the hostages first of all, and they probably that's will bring so many good things afterwards. But while the Hamas decided to continue holding these hostages, I think, unfortunately, the Palestinian civilians in Gaza are going to suffer more and more. What was the second question?
The second question was, do you think that reports that there is a famine or about to be a famine in Gaza are accurate, and how can that best be addressed during the war?
What do you mean by famine?
Famine, that people are starving, that there's no food.
No. I don't think that they reach such kind of point. I don't believe that. But people trying to show more and more to the international community that they are starving, even if they are not, because they are using, this thing as a kind of pressure against Israel. I don't think that anyone is starving. I think I am in touch with people every day in the Gaza Strip. I know what is really going on over there. Probably there is less food, let me say. There is less medicine in Gaza, but not all of the Gazan people are sick, and not all of the Gazan people are starving. I think that it is a tool that people trying, to use it in terms to impose more and more pressure on the international community to call for Israel to stop the war.
Great. I think we have time for two more questions. And then, so the first one I'm going to give you is from Tamima. How do you reconcile the innocence of the Palestinian civilians with the fact that so many civilians joined or celebrated the attacks or came and looted Israeli homes?
Yeah, unfortunately, as I said, that it probably was in the beginning. But I think that according to the survey these days, people start realizing more and more that their suffer is just came from the Hamas rather than from Israel. Imagine if the Hamas didn't committed their genocide on the October 7th. Will Gaza be under such kind of conditions? Of course not. Of course not. So the only one who should have to be blamed is the Hamas. I believe that recently we saw some demonstrations and some protests in the Gaza Strip, publicly calling the Hamas to release the hostages in terms to stop the war. People said, leave the hostages, free the hostages. We want to go back homes. People knows very well that they will never ever go back homes in Gaza while those 134 hostages are still in the kept by the Hamas in the different tunnels. I think that slowly, probably, people will start realizing more and more that the only tragedies that caused to them came only from the Hamas, but not from Israel at all.
All right. And from Maayan Greenbaum, thank you so much for your courageous voice, Bassem, and this conversation. How would you approach shifting the tragic influence that Hamas has had on Palestinian society in terms of the radical ideology and hatred that they've been teaching? This obviously extends beyond anything a military operation can achieve.
Yeah, I agree that we have so many things, to do in Gaza after this war. I think that the Palestinian curriculum and the textbooks, which has been used by UNRWA in the Palestinian schools, were horrible. But unfortunately, in the meantime, I didn't see that the international community tried to interfere here. I didn't see that the international community tried to demand from UNRWA to reform their curriculum and their textbooks. Listen, I was on the Capitol Hill several times. I met with different congressmen talking about the Palestinian curriculum and about UNRWA. Unfortunately, nothing has been done by those congressmen. I think that this is the time right now that Israel should have to demand to trash all the curriculum and the textbooks in the Gaza Strip, and probably to find an international organization who will be able to find for us a much better and a peaceful curriculum that we can probably be able to change the minds of our children, which has been suffering from a brainwash in the past 17 years.
Bassem, if you don't mind, I'm going to give you one more because this is very relevant to our students, I think. This is from Oren Rabinowitz, who works at Rutgers Newark. How do we best try to engage in productive discussion with students on campus who openly support Hamas?
Yeah, unfortunately, I talk a lot about this, and looks like to me it's impossible. Those people who are supporting Hamas, they have their own ideology here. And the ideology said that not to negotiate, not to not to respect the other. This is the ideology of those people. So to say how we can sit together, how we can negotiate, how we can discuss, this is not among their culture. This is one of the major problems here. So I don't think that they will accept it. Myself, several times I approached them while they are demonstrating in the different campuses, and they said, listen, instead of demonstrating, come and listen to me. I am going to teach you a lot of facts on the ground. Come and listen to me. But those people want to keep themselves, their eyes blinded, want to keep their ears deaf, and those people want to continue serving the agenda of their funders and their sponsors. This is one of the major problems here, that on campuses, you couldn't open any kind of a dialogue with these people while they continue believe that Israel has no right to exist. This is the ideology. And principles, goals, aims, you might be able to change, but you will never, ever be able to change the ideology.
Thank you, Bassem. This has been wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us, and for speaking to all of these people who have joined tonight. One question came in, and it's a short answer. Is there any news source that us in America that we can be looking towards, that's trusted, that we can get some information about what's going on that isn't completely skewed?
Unfortunately, I couldn't recommend anything.
Yeah, it's
I
hard.
couldn't recommend anything. The only thing that I can recommend is one thing. Come and visit Israel. Then you will see all the facts on the grounds in your eyes. This is the only way to understand the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
And right, you are. And just so everyone on the call knows, we have lots of opportunities to actually go to Israel. There's volunteer opportunities. There are travel opportunities for students, for adults. Please feel free to reach out if you are looking for those ways to get to Israel. We can try to help you. Bassem, thank you so much for your time tonight and for sharing with us.
All the best to all of you.
And you as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Take care.